hi again everybody, I'm Ketchy, I'm the president of the Entrepreneurship Club, and today I have Michael here. So he's a real estate investor, mostly in the US, right?
Yes, in the US.
The US does a bunch of cool things, but I thought I'd just let him introduce himself today and go through the process. So let's just give him a round of applause for
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me, man. This is it's really exciting. My name is Michael. I used to go here, UOB alum, and I'm also a marathon runner. I climbed the highest mountain in Africa, and I also do business in the US. So I remember, like not too long ago, I was sitting right over there on those little cubicles, and I had no idea what I was doing. Like I came to university strictly because my mother told me I didn't have any other choice. And I was the first of my family to go, so like for me, my whole goal was just to get here, right? So my first year, I remember I was on, like for me, I was just trying to get in, so my first year I was actually on academic probation. So it's kind of like full circle now to be doing the things that I'm doing now, because when I was sitting over there, I didn't think I would get to this point, right? And one thing that helped me was I read this book. I read The Alchemist. This is actually what sparked my curiosity and just the things that I've been doing, right? But obviously we're here to talk about entrepreneurship and real estate, right? So I just want to acknowledge you guys first because you guys could have been anywhere. It's Friday, it's 5 o'clock, and you guys chose to be here, so it says something about you guys. And yeah, I'm just super excited to kind of talk about my journey, but also to help you guys. My goal is just to get you guys to think big, right? When you're in school, sometimes it might be hard to figure out what you want to do, but like I'm super excited to have this opportunity. So I kind of want to break it up into two things because I could talk about real estate, but the important thing about it is the mindset, right? The mindset of being an entrepreneur. And I should first say how I got into real estate in the US particularly. So, let's see here. So in 2019, I went to a conference in Jamaica. And doing these, so it's kind of like a mastermind. Like I feel like it's a mastermind, right? But I went there and I got exposed. I got exposed to real estate. And the guy that was teaching it, for me, I'm from Canada, so I didn't think me doing it in the US was even feasible, right? I ended up talking to him. What he was saying was amazing about entrepreneurship, real estate, all that stuff. But I didn't think I could do it. So I ended up seeing him later on, and I asked him, I was like, is it possible for me to buy real estate in the US? Because me thinking real estate, I have to be where the property is so I can manage it. But it's a mindset shift, right? Because he told me, he's like, no, he has multiple properties in his portfolio. He's currently building a skyscraper in downtown Chicago right now. And he told me, he's like, do you think I ever go see my property? He's like, no. He just says, I hire people. And that was like, do you guys know those emojis where it's like mind blowing? I was like, wow. I was like, oh, that's curious, that's interesting. So it sparked my curiosity, and then I just took a leap of faith, and I decided to join this program, Make Real Estate Real, and I ended up Jamaica. 3 months later, I was in Chicago, and then in 2020, I established my company. So my company is in the US, but although I am more of a US investor, I'm still going to teach you guys about real estate tips here as well, right? If you guys are interested in that, of course. Let's see. But I first want to talk about the mindset, right? Mindset, it really matters because it's going to determine how far you go in terms of like exposure, right? Me going to all these conferences and getting this information allowed me to be able to do what I'm doing now. And that's why I really want to talk about the important qualities that, for me, that help me, that I want to share with you guys, right? So the mindset, it's definitely an important part about being an entrepreneur because entrepreneurship is not easy. It's a sexy word now. Everybody's like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm telling you, it's stressful. It's not easy. So the mindset is going to help you develop and be and become and create the things that you want to do, right? So let's go here. So the 5 C's. I have 5 C's for you guys, right? So it'll be easy to remember. And the first thing, and the important thing about this is, in terms of the mindset, it's gonna, this kind of mindset is going to help you have a growth mindset, right? So the first C is curiosity, right? For me, I think this is very important, and people might think, why is curiosity important? Curiosity is a strong desire, right? It's a very strong desire to know and to learn something. As an entrepreneur, you always have to be learning. Things are always changing. It's very important to know, especially whatever the thing that you're trying to accomplish, there's always something to learn, right? If you guys think you guys are going to stop learning when you're done school, I'm telling you right now, I've probably studied more now than I have when I was actually in school. So, yeah, so the curiosity is going to, why it's important too is because it's something that's meaningful to you, right? Sometimes, like for me, when I was in school, I remember, like I said, my whole goal was just to get into university. But once I got here, I didn't have no desire to, I just wanted to make my mom happy. So I struggled, right? And it's not because I'm not smart, it's because I wasn't interested. So it always has to start inside. Whatever you're doing, especially in business, it has to be something that's meaningful for you, right? So that's why curiosity is very important, and it will lead you to different things. And even before I started doing business, why I talk about me doing a marathon and also Kilimanjaro, which is the highest point in Africa, was because I developed my curiosity in those stages, right? I didn't think, like, I'm telling you right now, if you guys would have seen me there at that cubicle and you would have asked me what I wanted to do, I would have never thought I did any of these things that I'm telling you right now. So you guys don't even know what kind of potential and power you guys have until you tap into this. Because once you start to, have that intrinsic desire, trust me, you can go far. And it doesn't matter what obstacles come your way, you'll be able to overcome it. And trust me, I can do business in Canada. You doing it in US is harder, but because it's like, this is something that's like, it's important to me, I'm able to overcome any of those issues, right? So curiosity, that's the first C. And then the next thing, clarity, right? Clarity is very important. Even when I'm doing real estate, and I am a real estate investor, I use real estate as a vehicle, right? So what do I mean by that? Like, I remember when I was in school, I was like, okay, I just want to get my degree. I studied economics, so that was my major. I studied in economics, and I minored in math. But that was it. There was no, like, what you're trying to do, even in entrepreneurship, it should be a vehicle for the thing that you want. So let's just say real estate. Real estate, I'm not passionate about real estate, but I use it as a vehicle to get to the thing that I want. If that makes sense, right? For me, real estate allows me, especially doing it in the US, because I'm so separate from it, I have to build systems for it to maintain itself, and I have to hire people, right? Because it's separate from me. So I use this as a vehicle, because I want to use real estate as a way to do different things. Because for me, I want to have multiple businesses in different places. I want to be a serial entrepreneur. I don't want to be just confined to just being in one place for a long time. I want to be able to do multiple things. So real estate has allowed me to expand in terms of the things that I want to create. So you have to be specific in terms of what are you trying to create, or what are you trying to do, even with your degree. Like, with your degree, what are you trying to do with that, right? You can get a job, and there's no problem with getting a job as well, but what is it, that thing that you want to create, right? So it's very important to understand and to be clear, because once you get clarity, it's very important, right? And it's just like when you get into a car, right? You don't get into a car just to drive, you have a specific destination, right? And once you get clarity, sometimes people get bogged down on, well, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. There's multiple ways of getting to wherever the destination is. Like, let's just say you want to get to Calgary. You can drive, you can catch catch a plane, you can catch a bus, you can walk. Walking is possible too, right? But there's different ways of getting there. So sometimes people get scared to think big, or even just decide, yeah, this is what I want, but I have no idea how I'm going to get there. But there's always a way. So it's very important to have short-term, but also long-term goals and be clear. And I wrote over here too, some people, they get it confused, what's the difference between passion and purpose, right? I think this is very important because, again, if you're trying to do something and have a strong desire for it, you have to do things that light you up inside, right? So passion is something that lights you up inside. But your passion can always change, but your purpose is what you share with the world, right? So I think it's very important to know what these mean, right? So for me, real estate right now is where my focus is, what I'm passionate about, because my purpose, right? And I want to show people what's possible, right? That's the big thing about it too, because people always tell me like, why don't you just do business in Canada? And I'll explain why I do it in the US versus in Canada. But Canada has a great market too that you can take advantage of. But my purpose is what drives my clarity as well too, right? So the first one was curiosity. Second one is clarity. The next one, I had a hard time finding a word that started with a C, but challenge. And what I want you guys to get out of this is getting out of your comfort zone, right? This is very important because this is going to help you develop, right, as a person. And for me, doing business in the US and doing real estate was definitely out of my comfort zone because I had no experience whatsoever on how to do these things. But what it allowed me to do was to understand how things work, how our system works here in Canada and the US. And now I have a very good understanding of business because of what I've done. But I only got there because I got out of my comfort zone and I took a leap of faith, right? So that's why I wrote here, faith over fear. Sometimes we want to stay in our comfort zone because we don't want to take that leap of faith, right? But that's when you need to just dive in and try it. And sometimes things, they don't work out, right? But you can always learn something from it, right? And that's why it's important to have that growth mindset, because if you have that growth mindset, it will allow you to step out of your comfort zone and start to develop, right? And this is important for entrepreneurship. I'm telling you right now, because entrepreneurship, like I said, it is not easy, right? But it is possible, and it's exciting too. It's exciting, right? Let's see that. And the next one, consistency. Consistency is very crucial in the matter because now there's so many things trying to get our attention, and there's so many different ways to make money that sometimes you won't stay the course, right? Or it might be just difficult. You don't know how to overcome the problem, right? So it's important to understand with consistency, and this is how I do it personally, because even doing real estate in the US, it takes a little bit longer because I'm a foreign national trying to buy in another country. So unless you have a lot of money, it's hard to get some of the benefits that US citizens do, right? But I always look at it in terms of just getting small wins. Like even if I were to get, I don't know, a contractor or just find a lender or whatever the case may be, I take that as a win, and that builds momentum. And once you, like if anybody's played sports, let's say basketball for instance, and like you score a point and you don't miss, you keep going, you have that momentum, right? So that's why it's important to build small wins, because it leads to momentum. And that consistency, especially if you look at it if breaking it down into those small wins, you'll go really far, because sometimes when you look at the big picture of it, it can be very overwhelming and stop you from moving, right? And the whole point of it is to grow, right? As an entrepreneurship, you'll definitely have that. And the last one here, which is the number one thing, in my opinion, especially if you're trying to grow, scale your business, and even just move forward, is connections, right? So connections, when I say, is the only reason why I'm able to do what I do now, is because I've put myself in environments to meet with other like-minded individuals that do business, like what you guys are doing right now. Putting yourself and building those networks is so important. In school, we're always taught to do the test by ourselves, right? You study, you do the exam by yourself. But in business, you need people. And that's an important thing in business, building partnerships, having a network. And my network is because I go to a lot of conferences all over the place, all over the world. I've met so many people in so many different places. And like right now, currently, I was just in London, and I was at a conference in London, a business conference. And for me, I went to go learn, of course, but I actually ran into some other Canadians that were doing real estate in the US as well. And it was amazing because the issue that I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to build business credits with my business, right? And I've had issues because I do not have like a social security number in the US. My business does, but not me personally. So when I went to the banks, they told me, no, we're not going to give you business credit because you cannot be a personal guarantor on the thing. So I went to the banks twice in the US. I went to the US, I asked them twice, they said no. So when I went to this conference in London, I connected with other real estate investors from Canada as well. And they have business credit. So I was telling them what my issue was, and they gave me a way to get business credit. So networking is a very important thing in entrepreneurship. And even when you're in school as well. I remember when I was in school, in my beginning years, because my grades weren't that good in the beginning, but I learned how I learned. And one thing that helped me a lot was I always went to my prof when I didn't know something. And my grades skyrocketed from going from academic probation to, in my last semester, I had a 3.5 GPA. And even that, like, a lot of the things was just having some sort of network or relationship with my prof that helped me move forward. So building networks is very crucial in building partnerships. And that's how you're able to scale and grow your business. Like, if you see a lot of successful people, like, so let's just say, I don't know, Drake, for instance. Everybody thinks Drake, like, he's the face of it, but he has a very strong team behind him. And he does a lot of partnerships if you actually study Drake. So if you're trying to grow, expand your business, and just, move forward, it's very important to understand this principle of building your network and what you guys are doing right now, which is very good. And I wanted to talk about this guy, Clarence Avant. He's a music executive in the US, if you guys don't know, but this one quote, he says, "I don't have problems, I have friends." So what he means by that is any problem he usually has some sort of network or has some sort of friends to help him deal with that. So that's why networking is such a big and important part of it. So those are the 5 C's right there. Curiosity, clarity, challenge, consistency, and connections. If you guys can practice these things and develop these skills, I'm telling you right now, you guys will go very far. And I actually want to take like 5 minutes and tell you guys and show you guys what I mean by this. Because even when I go to these conferences, yes, it's good to go see the speakers, but the people that are there, the people that I've met at the conferences, and when I go and seek out information and stuff, is the key that helps me, right? So that's what I want to do for you guys now. So I actually want to take like 5 minutes, and I want you guys to actually network amongst yourselves. So I want you guys to go talk to, and for the introverts, you guys are going to hate me for sure. But I want you guys to get 2 or 3 connections right now, somebody you don't know. For 5 minutes, I'm going to let you guys go. And I want you guys to like introduce yourselves and just network within each other. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Yeah, go across the room. Go talk to somebody. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I don't want to, guys. We'll do more networking after, but I wanted you guys to really see
I'm an
and
introvert,
just
so.
network. within the people that you're here, because you actually never know who you're gonna run into, right? There could be somebody that can help you get to the next point where you're trying to go, right? So it's always good not to just focus on, like if you come to conferences or speakers, yes, you want to get the information, but the people that are there, you never know what they're doing. A lot of people, they don't know what I do and the kind of information I have, but it's always good just to network within where you are, because then you meet like-minded individuals, right? So that's why networking, especially in the environments that you are, is very key. So those are the 5 C's there, right? And when I tell you connections will help you solve, and networking, especially if you guys are looking to get in the job market right now, because you guys can see right now, things are slowing down. Inflation was really high, so now they're trying to slow down spending, which is going to create a lot. You can see a lot of industries are being affected in the job market, right? So that affects you guys if you guys are looking to get into the field. And one way to really set yourself apart is really the connections, right? That will help you. And I'm telling you, most of the jobs and the things that I have is only strictly because of the people that I know. And it's very important to put yourselves in those environments in order to do that, right? Because now the job, right now, like, we're going to talk about it more when I talk about real estate right away here. But in the US, which Canada usually follows, we usually do the same thing. Right now, inflation, last time I checked, was 7.7%. So inflation is essentially the cost of goods, right? Everything is costing more. You go to a grocery store or whatever the case may be, everything is costing more. So right now, the Federal Reserve said they're trying to bring inflation down to 2%. Right now, it's 7.7. So they said they're going to increase interest rates in order for people to stop spending, right? Because spending is what actually helps with inflation. Inflation is always going to happen. Back, in the early 1900s, like you can buy a piece of gum for like 2 cents, whatever, $2, not even $2, right? 20 cents. Now, if you're trying to buy a piece of gum, it's like $2.50, $3, right? That's inflation, right? So right now, they're trying to slow inflation down. So they're going to continue to increase interest rates. People are going to get scared to spend. And when you're in business, you need people to spend, right? That's how money circulates in the economy, right? So the job market now, and they said they're going to try to, I should say, by 2025 is when they're trying to get that inflation to 2%. So imagine, they said they're going to keep increasing interest rates and try to slow down spending until 2025. So that's, 2023 right now, so the next 2 years. So building networks is very important, especially if you're trying to get into the field. I don't know, some of you maybe first year, second year, third year, but it's very, very important. So we're going to get to the next portion of it here, and we're going to talk about real estate. So now we're going to talk about, even though I do real estate in the US, I still have important tips for you guys. And one of the important things in real estate is understanding how the market works, right? Because all these things that are happening now affect the real estate market. So I'm going to give some tips in understanding how the system and the market works, right? And these tips can be used in entrepreneurship as well, right? So in real estate, there's 2 major ways that people know and how to make money in real estate, right? You can buy a property and hold it, right? Or you can fix it up and then sell it, right? So the market that we were just in, and that's why it's very important, even when you're doing business, is to really understand what is going on. Because sometimes people think in real estate, yeah, I'm just going to buy a property and I'm just going to make money. That's not how it works. Because in real estate, it's very important to how you buy the property, right? Getting it at a good price. That is very key. So when the pandemic first happened, everybody was pretty much at home, so nobody was spending. So the prices of real estate dropped, right? So that was a great time to actually, well, there was a lot of fear going on, of course. The pandemic was very bad, but it was actually a good time to buy at that time because everything was on sale, essentially. You have to look at it in terms of that. So it was a great time to buy, and a lot of people, what they were doing, because the government was trying to help push the economy back to where it was. So the government started printing money and started giving money So you guys probably, if you had good credit, you probably got some sort of increase in your credit card, or probably got a line of credit. You see the government was also, I think in terms of interest payments, trying to get people to have more money so they can spend, because spending is important in our economy in the West. So that was a great time, because after they lowered interest rates as well, interest rates were super low. So the real estate market was so hot during the pandemic. So if you had property, you could see that your value of your property was going way high because there were so many buyers after the initial stages of the pandemic, because interest rates were so low. So everybody was like, interest rates are low, I'm trying to buy. So imagine if you had, like, even for me, I had a hard time getting my first property in the beginning of the pandemic, or not in the beginning, but later on in the pandemic, was because especially the investors, they knew this. And there was a lot of other buyers as well. So sometimes I would put in an offer for a property, and there was like 20 other buyers. So for the seller, you can see, like, let's just say they were selling it for $100,000, the property. If you have 20 buyers, one person's gonna say, I'll give you $100,000. Well, if somebody really wants it, they'll say, I'll give you $120. Then the other one say, no, I'll pay you $140. So that increases the price, right? So it was a great time to sell during that time. Even towards earlier this year, it was a great time. But now, the government is trying to slow down the inflation because everything is overinflated in price. So now, interest rates are really high, so you're getting less people trying to buy. So that's going to lower the price, right? Because then sellers are going to have less people that are trying to buy the property, right? So it's very important to understand, even in real estate, how the market works, because then you'll know. So right now, if you're trying to get into real estate, as you know, we're pretty much looming into recession, if we're not already in it, it's a great time to buy. But if you can, like for me, this is what I'm looking to do, because before I was trying to fix and flip. But now, if I'm going to try to sell it later, there's not as much buyers, right? So it's a good time to buy and hold, right? Even though interest rates are really high, this is a great time to do partnerships, right? So even when I went and I talked to these other Canadian investors, what I'm trying to do right now is seeing if we can pull money together and buy cash. Because especially in real estate, cash is king, right? So understanding how the market works is very, very important, because then you can move with the market, right? Some people just think, oh yeah, we can just buy this property, make it just look nice, and it's gonna sell. That's not typically how it works. You can actually overspend and spend more on your budget if you do that way. So the two ways, well, there's other ways as well, but the most common way is buy and hold and fix and flip, right? And we're gonna go back to Econ 101. Who here has taken Econ 101? Yeah, pretty much. So you guys know this. This is literally supply and demand. When I tell you, if you can, and this is even just for entrepreneurship, right? If you can actually understand this, like I remember learning this and I'm like, yeah, this is great, but I actually, now I see it in real life, how do I say, like in real time, like this right here is the core of business, right here. This chart right here. So we can talk in terms of real estate, but even if you're in entrepreneurship, this is very important to know. So let's just say, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're pretty much a supplier, right? You're supplying some sort of good or service or whatever the case may be, right? So whatever market you're trying to enter in, let's just talk about real estate because we're on that topic right now, right? So the market is determined pretty much by this, right? You have quantity on the bottom, and then on a vertical you have the price. And then you have the demand is the red, downward sloping one, and supply is up. So if you actually see, like over here, so let's just talk about the Toronto market right now, right? If you're trying to buy in Toronto or even Vancouver, like it's impossible to buy because the price is so high, right? So one way that the government, I've heard some of the governments are trying to make sure this price is lower, is by shifting the supply this way. So if the red one stays the same and you move this supply that way to the right, your price is actually going to drop, right? This is very simple economics, but this is such a key thing in business because whatever you're supplying, so let's just say in entrepreneurship, if you're going into a market that it's already, let's just say that it's already saturated, what makes you different? That's a big thing in business. How are you going to take that market share, right? Because if there's already a lot of supply in there, and you got to look at the demand as well, right? What are you offering? Is it in demand? And if it is in demand, what differentiates you, right? So for me, how I look at real estate, people always need a place to stay. So there's always going to be some sort of demand. So I don't really need to worry about that. But I do see in terms of how the economy is going to determine where is the best place to invest. Because right now I'm investing in Chicago, but that market, and we're going to talk about it more, that market, people are slowly leaving because it's getting too expensive. So let's talk about in terms of Canada, for instance, right? Alberta government is trying to get, I don't know, did you guys see all those signs where they're trying to bring people from Ontario here? Right? That will affect the real estate market because then you have more people needing a place to stay. So if you have some sort of property to supply that demand, it's good for you, right? So what they're trying to do is get more people here, and what's it going to do for Ontario, right? It's going to probably look, well, there's still a lot of people out there, so, but if you can understand this thing in terms of business, it's such a huge thing because then you'll know where's a good place. If you're a real estate investor especially, you'll know. When oil was doing very good here, you've seen so many people from other places, they were going to where Fort Mac. Real estate was booming, right? But now, the oil is kind of shot, so everybody went back, right? So in terms of real estate, it's very important to see where people are moving. So what's the population? Is there population growth? Is there jobs? Because people go where the jobs are, right? And just quality, like Toronto it's very hard to live there. So you're gonna see Alberta is gonna be, especially in Calgary, there's gonna be lots of, now you can already see the prices of real estate is going up in Calgary. And that's because a lot of people are seeing like, we got lower taxes here, it's so much easier quality of living wise to get around, do stuff, right? So it's very important, especially in business, even in entrepreneurship, if you can understand how this thing works and whatever you're trying to do, it's very, very important, right? Entrepreneurship, if you're trying to, I don't even know, like you can even see in businesses another way to, so let's just talk about, so we talked about supply, right? So if you're supplying something that's very rare and that's in demand, you're gonna make a lot of money. So let's just say you get a signed autograph jersey from, let's just say, I don't know, a very famous celebrity, like Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan, right? The value of that is very high in price because there's only that one quantity of it, right? And the price goes up because it's in demand. So if you're doing anything in entrepreneurship, if you can understand how these things work, it's very important, right? But in terms of real estate, this thing has helped me tremendously because I look at the best places to, and this is why I, like right now in Canada, I don't invest because in the US, I can buy properties a lot cheaper than I can do here. Here it's going to take me a little bit more and I need more capital. In the US, you can get like properties like multifamilies, like during the pandemic, 50,000, 60,000. So I want to go there in that market, tap in, and then eventually do stuff here when I have more capital to get in, right? So understanding the markets is very important. So especially in real estate. So these are the kind of things that when I'm looking to invest, this is the stuff that I look like. Alberta, especially if we can figure out, like oil is definitely important, but in the long term, I don't know what they're going to do because you can even see, I think by 2035, they're trying to have like zero emissions. So you can starting to see electric vehicles and all that stuff coming in. So that is an industry that I'm definitely interested in because by 2035, that is where the direction they're going. So understanding the market. So if you're an entrepreneur, you can start building your business. You say, yeah, I want to supply whatever this is because there's a demand that's going to be rising. So understanding how what the government is doing, what the future holds for whatever's coming is very important. But in real estate, these are the things that I look for, especially when I'm in the US, but eventually in Canada as well. I look for the population. How many people is there? Like can somebody even search up what's Canada's population? Can somebody search it up for me? And do you guys know how much people are in California?
17 million.
It's actually more than all of Canada.
More than 30 million.
Yeah, it's more than all of Canada. So California by itself, yeah, it's crazy, right? So you can see in terms of why I decided to go into the US to start. I'm gonna get into the Canadian market, but the population is more, so there's more demand, right? So I look at population, then I look at where are people moving, right? A lot of people are moving to like Texas, southern states because it's a lot freer in terms of business, right? So that's another area that I'm eventually going to get into and what I'm working on currently. But I always look, where are people moving to? Because that's going to determine, where's the best place to invest, right? So in Canada, right now, I feel like Alberta is probably a great place eventually, especially Calgary. Edmonton, I feel like we have the potential, and I feel like if Calgary gets it gets too crazy there, people are going to come to Edmonton. So we'll have to see about that, but I do look at population growth and see where are people moving. And you can even see the government just said they're going to bring in, I think by 2025, another like 500,000 immigrants. So again, it's just, I'm going to try to see, okay, where are they placing them first, right? Because then if they're saying, okay, we're going to put them all in maybe like Winnipeg, then I'm going to see okay, are they going to stay there? Maybe they don't like the cold and then they're going to move somewhere else, right? So these are the kind of things that I pay attention to, and I use, that's funny because I use economics to see, and I actually apply it when I'm doing this. So whatever you guys are studying, I feel like it's a great way to, like, whatever you're studying, try to apply it wherever you're trying to do it, right? So then I look at jobs. Jobs is very important. Are they creating more jobs, or is there job opportunity? And if there's job growth, right? So Alberta, we're getting more people here, slowly, but I want to see what else they're going to do in terms of, are we just going to rely on oil, or are we going to diversify our economy? Because then people are going to stay, right? Also crime is very important, because people don't want to stay where there is a lot of crime. But I also look at, like where I was looking to invest in Chicago was Southside Chicago. And everybody's like, if you know a little bit about Southside Chicago, there's a lot of crime there, right? But there's also lots of opportunity in terms of, I see what they're building there, so they're gentrifying everything. So they're changing the whole community. So there's a potential for growth, right? There's potential for growth. So Chicago is where I'm based right now, but I do use this to see, okay, where do I want to invest? And I look at these things, and then you can look at median income, right? What's the median income? In the US, it's a lot easier to get information in terms of this kind of information. Canada's a little bit tougher. But if you're looking to get into the real estate market, I would say these are the things you want to look for, right? Because this is going to determine, if we look back at the supply and demand chart, it's going to affect the price of your property, right? All these things have influence on it. So even in business, I think it's very important in general, if you're being an entrepreneur, what is the thing that you're supplying? And like, is there demand for it? If there's no demand, what a lot of people do, and especially where it's a big market, is advertisements, right? Everybody's trying to get your attention. If you guys don't know, like, have you guys ever had like where you search up something on a computer and then you're going on IG and next thing you know you see that thing just pop up, right? Everybody's trying to get your attention because they want to sell something to you, right? Even when you're watching sports, you can see they just put their logo there because they want you to be familiar with their product. Because then, like if you just say, like let's just say you're watching, okay, World Cup, or actually not World Cup because you don't see advertisement. Let's just say you're watching a hockey game, you see on the boards, all those advertisements there. Eventually, like you see it so often that when it's that time to make that decision. Well, let's just say, you know, I know Enterprise has a lot of like advertisements, especially with the NHL and stuff. Then when you're gonna think, oh, I need a rental car, what's the first thing you're gonna think of? And what you're most familiar with, right? Because we have lots of options, so sometimes you wanna look and see, okay, who do I wanna go with? And when you don't know, you just stick with what you're familiar with. Then you'll go with Enterprise. But also in your business, what's very important is customer service. Because if you have not good service, then people are not gonna wanna come to you. So it's very important. Everybody's trying to get your attention. So that's actually how you can create demand. Whatever you're supplying is try to get people's attention, right? And try to promote your business and try to solve a problem, right? So these are the things in terms of the real estate. This is what I look for. And eventually I am going to get in the Canadian market, but it is, like the US has a lot more opportunity in terms of getting funding, and I don't need as much cash up front. So this is why I decided to go in the US. I have mentors, so my connections is another reason why, because I have people that are in the industry that know what they're doing, so I just literally do what they tell me to do, right? So eventually I am gonna get in the Canadian market, and these are the things that I'm gonna look for. But I pay attention. This is one thing I hated politics. I never was into politics, but now I study politics. Well, I don't even study it, but I pay attention to what's going on because that has a big influence on business. All right, so that's very important. So that's the tip I wanted to talk to you guys about, especially the supply and demand thing. It's such a small thing, but it's actually huge in terms of business. So I do real estate, not as full-time, because I still need to build my business, right? So that's why I said it's good to get clarity in terms of what you want to do as well, because I use Enterprise to help fund my business, right? So that was an important piece, yeah. And I really studied how Enterprise, because if you look at it too, Enterprise is a US business, right? And they've expanded globally. So I actually studied how they do that. Because for me, I was running the branch, and I seen how much the branch made, but the CEOs, they never came to my store, right? So that's why some people are like, why don't you do real estate here? Because I'm trying to have the mindset of a CEO in terms of what Enterprise does well is they train people very well and they have good systems. That's another thing in business. If you have very good systems and very good people, you're able to expand your business very well.
Well, one more thing, sorry, but like, so you have people that you hire to run your business?
Yeah, so essentially I have like an agent down there. So I've been to Chicago, maybe I was just there recently. But essentially, yeah, like I have an attorney, and this is why the network is very important, right? Attorney, I had to find contractors. And with technology now, it's very, even finding properties, I would have programs that help me see what the area is like and stuff like that, right? So yeah, essentially I would hire people to help me build my business. So, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
What kind of news sources do you use to stay up to date on what's going on that's relevant for real estate and business?
So I pay attention a little, so I don't too much, but the news especially, and I follow on IG is like the Bloomberg Business and Yahoo Finance and stuff like that.
Okay.
So those things kind of keep me up to date. But honestly, just even the news, like whenever there's like elections and stuff like that going on, like I tune in. So those are in terms of real estate. I'm always trying to go to real estate, and I have mentors. So I do weekly calls every 2 weeks with my mentor. So I kind of know what's going on in terms of the market, in terms of that. But I do my own research as well. Like I would go, like I said, I would follow those things, see what's going on. But I would use the internet. The internet is a great place.
So with like the midterm election that just happened, how much of an impact that has on what you do?
Yeah, so I was focusing on that, but not to the point where it's gonna like sway whatever I was doing too much. But I was paying attention to see who's running and who's getting in, because they'll have different policies. For me, how I operate, like it doesn't matter who's in, I just adjust to who's in, if that makes sense, right? So obviously we can't vote in the U.S., but it did have a small like inclination of where it's going to go. So I have a little bit of an idea, but we're going to see in 2 years, because if there's a presidential switch, then it can affect the market. The politics is very important.
You mentioned better funding opportunities in the U.S. What are kind of like some ways for us around here to get money in the U.S.?
Yeah, so there is so most people, when they think in real estate, they think in terms of like you can go to the bank, but there's private lenders. So sometimes you can get private lenders where they use the property as collateral and they're strictly for investors. So it's a little bit higher interest, but they use the property as collateral and then you can kind of refinance after. So there's private lenders, hard money lenders, and I've been trying to see if I can find some here. So I'm working on trying to find that here, because if I can find that here, what's nice about those lenders, they won't look at your debt. They just need to see that you have an entity, a business. So that's why I established when I buy my properties, it's not under my name, it's under my business name. You need to have a good credit score, and then you need to have funds. So they don't really look at your income, or they don't look at your like your debt. Because sometimes if you're trying to buy a property here, when you go into the banks, if you don't have good income coming in, or if you have a lot of debt, they're not going to approve you, right? So yeah, so I'm currently looking at hard money lenders here. I haven't had too much luck, but there's always ways. So as I network more, I'm going to try to find some here.
What are your tips for networking?
Networking, oh yeah, there's lots. So doing what you did, like coming to these kind of events is great. Especially for me, why I like to go, so I go to a lot of conferences. Like I'm actually going to New York after this to go to another business conference, because you never know who you're gonna meet. You can literally meet one person that can change your whole life. Even today, like you guys could have got information that can change your life today, right? So in terms of networking, I always get out of my comfort zone, and I always go places where I am not the smartest person there. So I always try to be learning something, right? And always just try to, like, in terms of networking, I feel like sometimes we're always trying to like get something from somebody else. Try to add value. I always try to, anybody that I meet, I always try to give more than I take. And that has pushed me and helped me a lot in my business, because I have good relationships with a lot of people. So, man, even doing what you're doing now is great. Like coming to these kind of things, networking amongst the people that are here, and you never know, like, and that's why I think it's important to have clarity, because if you have clarity in what you want to do, you may talk to that person and say, this is what I'm trying to work towards, and they might not have the answer, but they might lead you to somebody else, right? So I think it's very important in terms of networking and getting clear on what you were trying to accomplish. Yes, it's important to say, yeah, I want to be, an accountant or whatever, but like having clarity is such a huge thing, or whatever you're working towards, just like say it out loud, right? And then you never know. Trust me, I've had opportunities where I just talk about, yeah, this is what I'm having troubles with, or this is where I'm trying to go, and somebody's like, oh yeah, I have a contact for you. Or when I had issues at the bank, I had somebody say, oh, I'll talk to this person at the bank, and they can help you figure out your solution. And so I have a network at a Bank of America. But it's always important to, I think, have clarity, but also put yourself in those environments and not be like, get out of your comfort zone, just like go talk to people. I think those are important things. That's something I didn't really do when I was in here, because I was so focused on my schooling, kind of, not in the first couple of years, no, but later on, yes. So, yeah.
What are some ways you can stay balanced as a student pursuing business ventures?
So this is why I think when I talked about consistency, sometimes you might have that big audacious goal, but it's important to do the small steps to get you there, right? So let's just say you want to build your own business, but you're in school right now. Maybe just finishing school, still doing, like have that in mind, but finishing school to help you get a job to fund that business is the next step for you. Right? So if you're like, let's just say Kilimanjaro, when I climbed Kilimanjaro, it's a huge mountain, and when you look at it, it's very intimidating. But when I took one step at a time, I look back, I ended up doing it, right? And I didn't think I was capable of doing it. So as a student, I still say you want to still focus on your schooling because like you're here, right? But in terms of just get clarity of where you want to go and then just do one thing at a time. Because sometimes when you look at the big picture, it can be overwhelming. And I know school, it takes a lot of time, right? So doing things like this, I think is very important because you're going to get exposure, right? But yeah, as a student, I remember how that is. It's a lot. But when I was in school, I still went to conferences. I went to my very first conference in Toronto. Everybody thought I was crazy for going all the way to Toronto to go. But I wanted to see my favorite speaker, Eric Thomas. And I went when I was in my 3rd year. And I put money to go, right? And everybody was like, why don't you just watch him on YouTube or whatever? And but when I went, and I was in school while I was doing it, so I didn't really have funds. Like I was still working, but I didn't have much. But I still went out of my comfort zone, took a leap of faith. Then I got exposure, because then I went there and then I started seeing and learning different things. So when I came back, I was like, oh, I need to go more. And then it slowly built momentum. So things really started to pick up. I built small momentum during school, but when I finished school and when I started working, then I was like, I really started to take off. So just doing the small things, yeah. You're not gonna accomplish everything all at once, so.
Was there anything in which you knew before you went into real estate?
That's always a good question. No, because I wouldn't be who I am now. So if I didn't, like the thing is, people think, and you know what's crazy, I'm gonna show you this, because I forgot to mention this. So, it's going to be a weird analogy, but just, you'll understand what I'm talking about. You know when you guys are getting your pulse checked? And actually, before I should say that, science proves that the universe is always growing and expanding. So as people in the universe, we should be doing the same, right? But if you ever check somebody's pulse, somebody that's deceased, what is that? It looks like a straight line, right? There's no growth. But when there's growth, or when somebody's alive, it's never really a straight line. It's like this, right? And success is like that. Success is a give and take thing with success and failure. Because people think when you're trying to do business, it's all sunshine and rainbows and it's just a straight line. But in terms of like when you're growing and your growth, it's an up and down thing. So in business, I had a lot of failures. Like I'm talking more so about successes and the things that I learned from my failures. So I don't actually regret anything that I went through because everything that I went through helped me learn some of the stuff that I teach you today. So I don't regret. Yeah, do I wish I had property sooner? Yes, but like more. But sometimes when you get things too quickly, like let's just say I have a 9-year, like if you had a 9-year-old sibling, do you drive? Okay, so I drive, and I have a 9-year-old sibling. Would I give my 9-year-old sibling my car? No, it's too soon, right? It's not to say I wouldn't give it to them, it's just they're not ready for it. So sometimes you go through these things, not because you're not meant to have it, but you're supposed to go through a process so that when you get there, it's not gonna be like something that's gonna harm you, or it's gonna be something that's like you can't handle, right? So all the things that I went through actually allow me to do what I'm doing right at this moment, right? So, and then I'm able to keep it longer and it's gonna be serve for a bigger purpose, right? So no, I don't regret anything in the things that I went through. And I went through a lot of failures, so.
For your business specifically, right? Do you just flip houses? Or do you just like...
So that was my plan originally, but now the market shifts. So now if I try to, that's why I was talking about it's good to understand the market, because now it's going to be more so a buy and hold market because things always go in a cyclical, like up and down way, right? So right now it's going to be a buy and hold market until we get out of the recession, and however long that may be. But when I talked about the Federal Reserve said they're trying to get inflation down to 2% by 2025, I can still fix and flip, but it's going to be better to buy and hold, because then after, well, you still have to pay attention to the market, but I understand the direction it's going. So probably after 2025, there's going to be a period where things are picking up again, and that'll be a great time to sell. So right now it's a great time to buy, but if you have cash, I think it's the best. You can still buy without buying in cash, but you're going to pay a little bit more higher interest, right? So it's going to be more costs.
Do you guys do like commercial estates or like very custom? Like,
So I do focus on residential. Yeah, so just people that are, but eventually, like, I've been more exposed into developing right now. So that might be something in the long term that I pursue, but I still want to master where I'm at right now. So yeah, so my whole strategy has changed now because the market is shifting. So you have to pay attention to the market, because sometimes people just, even me when I was starting, I was like, man, I just want a property, just say I have a property. It wasn't like, but you want to make sure that when you get it, it's going to be producing, right? So now my strategy has changed, but that's why I'm doing a lot of networking to see if I can build some partnerships in order to, and I can do, like, I won't be stuck, I wouldn't say stuck, but the more partnerships, the more things I can do, open up more time for me. And that's actually the number one thing about being an entrepreneur. It's actually not about money, it's about time. Time is the greatest commodity, and if you actually study the very successful people, money can always be made, but you can never get your time back. So for me, when I use entrepreneurship, it's actually not, it is about money, but more so about my time. I do things that can give me more time, where I'm only doing things that I want to do. So that's why real estate is a vehicle for me, and that's why I said having clarity. Real estate is just one vehicle for me. I'm going to have multiple vehicles, and that's going to allow me to have more time, because that is truly what I value. Money is, it comes and it goes, right? So, yeah. Any other questions?
yeah, so if you didn't go into like real estate, right, what other franchise would you say that?
That's a good question. I actually haven't, like, in terms of what I would do,
I guess we
I think media. I think I would do media. Like, you can make, like, if,
advertising stuff.
yeah, like, if you think in terms of, like, advertisements, like, people make a lot of money in advertisements and stuff like that, so I would probably do something in media. For me personally, marketing or something like that, but it varies. There's so many industries, there's so much money out there, you can do a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh, one last question.
No, it's good, I like it.
Like, you buy and hold houses, right? So you just like rent them out to residential people, and then just when the value is really high, you just sell it.
Yeah, so that's why I said it's important, because there's like, you have to have clarity in what you're doing. Like, my mentor, he always says, like, every property he had, it had a purpose. So he had a bill, like every bill that he had a property for.
What do you mean, Bill?
So like, my mentor is Jamal King. He said one of his rules was every building had to serve a purpose. So he wouldn't just buy a building just to buy a building. So he has his daughters in school, right? So he's like, I'm gonna buy this building, and I want it to net me this much money specifically, because that building is specifically gonna pay off this. So he used real estate, and that's why I say clarity is very important, because it depends on you. You can do, there's so many different ways where you can, yeah, you can fix and flip, buy and hold, but it depends on what you want specifically. So for him, every property he had, it served to pay a bill. Some sort of for his kids' education or for his wife. So he would buy a property, say, I want it to make me this much money specifically. If it didn't give him that much money, he wouldn't get into the deal at all.
But how would he know?
He would do the numbers. And then he would make sure prior that it would get him that.
But you can do the numbers to a point, right? But isn't it like fundamentally unpredictable? Like, you know what I mean?
Not necessarily if you study the market and how things are working, because if, like, you're thinking it in terms of doing it here, but if you go in Chicago, there's way more people, right? And there was a lot more properties that needed to be fixed, so he's adding value. He's creating a demand which will serve to that. So that's why I said the supply and demand thing is very important. Yeah. So it takes time to get to that level. There's different levels, right? But that's why it's important to develop and grow, because entrepreneurship, like I said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You go through a lot. So, but it's a good question. Good questions.
Yes, all time right now, unfortunately, but thank you.
Yeah, no
Thank
worries.
you everyone for being here for your time, and obviously thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
your
guys for having me.
presentation.
Yeah.